Thanks for joining me today. My name is Rami. I'm the CEO of OnceHub. And today I'm going to discuss the key considerations to take into account when planning a product-led minimum viable product. Okay, so to start, we're going to look at the two definitions. One is for differentiators and the other one is for table stakes. What are differentiators? Differentiator features, these are your gems. These are the features that make people excited about the product and attract people to your product. What you also need to have is table stakes, and each product has table stakes. We want to have to have an MVP that doesn't require many table stakes. We'll talk about it in a bit. But table stakes are things that you must have in your product. You cannot go out without these things. For example, if we're talking about meeting scheduling, you need to have a cancel reschedule. You need to have reminders. These are in today's market, these are table stakes. Now, there is a movement between differentiators and table stakes. So at the beginning, a new feature can be a differentiator. The market gets excited about it. But after some time, other competitors include it and the market comes to expect it, and it moves into the table stake bucket. So there's always a movement between differentiators. The question is, how long can the differentiators live before they become table stakes? So table stakes are your worst enemy when planning a minimum viable product. If you look at this diagram, we have an emerging market here and a mature market here, and this is anything in the middle. And you can see that the differentiators are high at the beginning and they go down. And the opposite is for table stakes. Table stakes are low when the market is emerging and high when the market is maturing. Why is that happening? Because at the beginning, when the market doesn't expect your product, doesn't know exactly what to expect, if the product does something new, almost all the features are differentiators. But once the market gets used to the product and there's more usage and more competitors, the market comes to expect these features, and a lot of the differentiator features start moving into the table stakes bucket. And when we think about a minimum viable product, what is the optimal window to introduce a minimum viable product? We want to have many differentiators, and we want to have as least table stakes as possible in order to release this product. And the ideal window of opportunity is somewhere at the beginning. You don't want to start here because maybe the market is so young that it's not going to pick up on your product, and there's going to be too much market education. You do want to start when the market has some level of attraction, just about the point where early adopters are starting to adopt this type of product. And you have a window of opportunity. I mean, it depends on the adoption curve. It can be a year, it can be 2 years, 3 years, it can be even maybe shorter than a year. It all depends on the steepness of the adoption curve. And if you want to enter the market later on, your MVP is going to be much bigger, not just a small MVP, but a bigger MVP. Let's take an example. So the online meeting scheduling market, this is the market that we are in, so we know it well. And you can see that's the adoption curve that we drew for the online meeting scheduling market, and it is pretty flat starting from 2005 until 2030. But with online scheduling, we know we started around 2006, and individual level adoption only started to happen around 2013. There were about 7 years that not too much happened. Business adoption started around here, 2015, and today we believe we're here more or less. That's what our customers are telling us. Now, if we look at the ideal window of opportunity for an MVP in this market, it is somewhere between 2010 to 2013. This was a good time because as soon as you had your MVP, you could get meaningful traction. This timing of the MVP is critical and something that you should think about very seriously when you're planning your MVP. Another way to look at this same adoption curve is to see the number of features that are required for the minimum viable product. So if you were launching your MVP in the optimal time window, you would have to come up to market with this amount of features. And if you started in 2015, you would have to almost double. And if you were to start now, you would have to almost triple the amount of features. So it's a much bigger MVP, but the thing is not just the amount of features, it is what are these features composed of in terms of differentiators and table stakes. If you launch in the optimal window of opportunity, most of your features are differentiators. But launching in 2015, most of your features are table stakes, and the differentiators you have here are even lower than what you had here. And if you were to launch now, you would have very few differentiators. It's actually, the market is in a state that it's very hard to find new features to differentiate in online meeting scheduling. And you would have to do a lot of table stakes, a lot. Okay, so we talked about the market dimension. So we have an emerging market and a mature market. So this is the vertical axis here. And we have the horizontal axis. We're adding another dimension, which is the use case. What is our product automating? Is it automating one scenario, or is it automating multiple scenarios? Some MVPs are an all-in-one. If you want to come up to the market with a small MVP, you need to be up here. So you need to find an emerging market, and you need to automate as least scenarios as possible. You need to find one scenario, do that really, really well. So that's where you can come up to market with one small one MVP. But you need to map where you are. So you need to look at your product, understand what use cases, which use cases it is automating, and you also need to look at the market, like we said before. And you may be further down, so you can see that your MVP scope is increasing as we go down. Now, this framework is very useful because you can use it to align expectations with your stakeholders. There is always a pressure to go to market as fast as possible, and engineering wants to come up with a small scope, and sales also wants to have something in the market, and marketing is looking to see it go live. There's a lot of pressure, but if you do this mapping for your product, you can see actually, yes, everyone wants to do this, but it doesn't make sense. I mean, we are here today and the scope has to be bigger, and that can delay our time to market. Another thing that can happen, sometimes there are very quick movements in the market. We know this in high tech. And maybe when you start, you're planning for this, but it takes you maybe a year to get a product to market. And after 9 months, you're almost ready to start wrapping things up. A new competitor enters the market. There are some changes in the market, and you actually realize that you don't have a good enough story, and that your MVP scope needs to change, and maybe you need to move a bit down here. And another often missed point is the market implications of planning an MVP. In many cases, the MVP is very product driven. Like in this example, this is planning a family minivan, and you can see a very product driven approach. Start with a very simple truck, improve the truck, make it into a van, and make it into a family van. And if we look at the market and we do some market mapping, so here we have fewer passengers and more passengers, and here we have personal use and work use. And let's map these versions of the MVP. So this is our first truck. It's fewer passenger and work, strictly work. You can't do anything else with it. And this one, yeah, maybe you can do some more personal stuff with it. And this one, you can drive more passengers in it. But what we wanted to do is get into the family minivan market. That's what we eventually wanted to build. But along the way, we introduced versions of the MVP that took us into the wrong market. And once you have a product in the market, you of course start getting feedback, and you want to listen to the market and you want to improve. So if we are in this market, we're going to get feedback around building a truck for work, and there's going to be a lot of improvement. It can turn out to be a great truck, but it will not turn out to be a family minivan. Let's also talk about pricing. That's another very important factor. And my recommendation is to take pricing out of the equation initially. You don't want to do two things at the same time. So one thing is charging for the product, and another thing is understanding if the features that you have are fit for the market. Because maybe the MVP is not going to get traction from day one, and things are not going to go as planned. If you are pricing the product initially, it's hard to tell if it's because of the price. Maybe the pricing is too high, or is it because of the product itself? So I would say if you can, avoid pricing at the beginning and then start increasing slowly. Bit by bit, test the market, see how it's responding to your price increase. If everything is good, do another one. So take it slowly and really measure and monitor the market's response. And another key point is pricing as a competitive advantage. So some vendors stay on a price that is significantly lower than the market level and use price as a competitive advantage. It is definitely a differentiator. If you don't have enough differentiators in your MVP, price can be a major differentiator. What you need to take into account is that at the end of the day, you are cutting the branch that you are sitting on, because competitors can also reduce pricing. Maybe it's going to take them some more time. But if there are competitors in the market with more features than you, they will also respond and reduce pricing, and then your competitive advantage will be eroded. So it is always better to have inherent differentiators that are part of your product and not have to rely on pricing. Let's talk about activation and onboarding. So in the traditional high-touch sales model, you don't need to worry about this so much, because you can work with the users and make them successful. But in the low-touch model, even if the product is great, it does what it is supposed to do, but users don't understand how to use it and don't become successful with it, and you didn't achieve anything. So it is very important to understand the activation flows. What are the points that users need to do in order to use your product? Maybe in online scheduling, they need to connect the calendar and do a test booking. And maybe they need to add users if it's an application that there is collaborative work between the users. And you need to understand the sign-up flows. Where are people going to sign up from? Whether it's the pricing page, the homepage, is there a clear path? And all this flow should be measured and monitored, so you understand the drop-off and can correct, because the product may be good, maybe you also didn't charge for it, there are no barriers to adoption, but there still is a problem in onboarding, and you need to understand these problems. Another important factor is the story around your MVP. I see many cases where you come to a website and you see a big story. Okay, this is what the product can do, and yeah, it looks great on paper on the website. And then you sign up and you see only a small fraction of this implemented. Other things are coming soon or coming later. And this is not a good approach, because it is a trust buster. You set expectations at a high level and then they become much smaller. The reality is not smaller. You don't want to be in this place. And you want to be in a place where your MVP has a good story. If you cannot tell a good story around your MVP, then the scope is not right, and you need to adjust your scope. So the last thing, everything, you've checked all the boxes, everything is good now, you just need to launch. You don't need to spend too much time on this. We're in product-led, we want the product to sell itself, so all you need to do is give it a small nudge. And if you've done everything right, it should start rolling downhill and selling itself. And if you've done some things wrong, but you have the right measures, you can very quickly correct. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. If you have any additional questions or thoughts, feel free to reach out to me and connect on LinkedIn.